Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing? How are you guys feeling? Hey, y'all. So, this video isn't about dragging anybody or trying to expose anybody. This is not what that is, okay? This is not what this is. This is just something that's been sitting on my mind. And I wanted to open up a conversation about it, not because I think I have the answers, but because I think like these are the kind of conversations we don't have enough, especially when it comes to black masculinity, queerness, sexuality, and the way power plays out in relationships, right? Now, I've heard the rumors, just like everybody else, there have been whispers for years about Tupac, right?
I think Suge is just a big old light-skinned guy that don't know how to come out. From reliable sources like, nigga, the red room, you know what I'm saying, having niggas going in the red room, watching two men have sex, watching all kind of shit, men having sex, that was their punishment.
Maybe being gay or bisexual. There's also been like talks about, what used to go down in Death Row Records. People are saying that Suge Knight would make artists do things sexually, as a way to humiliate or control them. One person, I believe his name is Tyron Turner. He even came out on a podcast saying that Suge, didn't know how to fight, and this is how he handled conflicts, right? Now, I wasn't there, so I don't know this to be true, but I think it kind of sparked up just my mind thinking. The wheels started turning for me. I just started really thinking deeply about it. Now, I'm not just saying this is true. I'm just saying this is what's been said, right? And when stuff like that kind of come out and it gets said out loud, it makes me think about like deeper things, like what is really going on in Hollywood, what it says about what they say about masculinity, especially within hip hop, right? So let's talk about Tupac for a second, right? He's one of the most beloved black male icons of all time. But Tupac was also layered, He was a revolutionary, emotional, poetic, complicated. There's a letter out there where he explained to Madonna why he couldn't go public with their relationship. And the reason, things were the way they were between him and like Madonna, reasons was because, he didn't want to mess up his image.
On January 15th, 95 at 4:30 a.m. I've waited a long time to finally write this, mainly because I was struggling to find all the answers so that I wouldn't leave any unanswered questions. First and foremost, I must apologize to you because, like you said, I haven't been the kind of friend that I know I'm capable of being. Not because I'm evil or because you weren't worthy, but at the risk of sounding overdramatic, the effects of racism make it difficult for a young black male to probably show affection for an older white woman. Can you understand that? For you to be seen with a black man wouldn't in any way jeopardize your career. If anything, it would make you seem that much more open and excited. But for me, at least, in my previous perception, I felt, due to my quote image, I would be letting down half of the people who made me what I thought I was. I never meant to hurt you. As a matter of fact, I was honestly stuck on you, but I got scared. I don't want to be another toy or another one of many. Also, I read somewhere in an interview where you said, I'm off to rehabilitate all the rappers and basketball players or something like that. Something to that effect. Those words cut me deep, seeing how I never known you to be with any rappers besides myself. It was at this moment, out of hurt and a natural instinct to strike back and defend my heart and ego, that I said a lot of the things that I have since come to regret. But you know how effed up society can be. If it wasn't, then I can openly show you how I feel anytime, anywhere. And you in return could show your support for me in the open, not just anonymously. Can you feel me? In the time since, as you can see, I have grown both spiritually and mentally. It no longer matters how I'm perceived. Please understand my previous position as that of a young man with limited experience with an extremely famous sex symbol who also happens to be known to every man, woman, and child in the world. Please remember me, not for my shortcomings, but for the good times and the magic that we shared. Assuming, of course, that I meant anything to you. Now, my outlook is different. Everyone is judged and treated not by their color or fame, but on how they treat me. And because you have been so kind, even in the midst of my craziness, I offer my friendship. Once again, this time much stronger and focused. If you are still interested, I would like to further discuss this with you, but some of it couldn't wait. I felt compelled to tell you, just in case anything happened to me. Be careful, Madonna. Not everyone is as honorable as they seem. There are those whose heart bleed with envy and evil. They would not hesitate to do you harm. Let my 5 bullets be proof of that. P.S. If there's any information you can share with me regarding Jack and crew, please do. It could very well be a matter of life and death. Always, Tupac. He also said, I don't know how you feel about visiting me, but if you could find it in your heart, I would love to speak face to face with you. It's funny, but this experience has taught me not to take anything for granted.
He literally said that, as a black man, being seen with a white woman like her would damage how people viewed, him. And that tells you how strategic he had to be about his image. So if he was that, proactive of how people saw him dating a white woman, what would happen if he was queer or exploring anything outside of the box of traditional masculinity? Again, I'm not saying he was. I'm saying, what if, what does it say about the culture that he couldn't be fully himself, whatever that looked like, whether it was dating a white woman or, being a part of the gay community, right? What would that mean? Now, let's talk about Jada. She's been labeled as controlling, emotionally manipulative, even as a narcissist. But I think there's more to it, because when you look at her relationships, especially the one with August Alsina, there's always this talk of how deep their connection was. Like, he described it like nothing he had ever had before. Will Smith was also talked about how his connection to her has pulled him through dark moments. It's like these men are changed by her, and I started wondering, like, what is it about her that leaves this kind of mark? There are rumors that Jada is a top, allegedly, and some say that she's used toys with the men she's been with. Again, I'm not saying this is fact. I'm saying that if that is true, then maybe it's not just about emotional power she holds. Maybe it's sexual, Maybe she's flipped the script on, what we expect in a man-woman dynamic, especially when it comes to dominant versus submissive roles, And now look at August Alsina. He's been publicly with a man that people are assuming is his partner. And while, like, he hasn't come out in a traditional sense, he's definitely exploring that space, And I think maybe that relationship with Jada was part of his journey. Maybe it helped unlock something. Maybe it made space for him, to understand himself in a new way, And that's not shade, that's growth, and it's human, in my humble opinion. Here's where I think it gets real, right? In the black community, especially when it comes to men, queerness, and all of that, right? Queerness still carries so much shame. Even though we've come so far, there's still, this idea that if a man is with another man, he's less of a man. And if it comes out that he was cheating on a woman, having 10 baby mamas, being reckless, that's somehow more acceptable than just saying, I'm attracted to a man. Why is that? I don't think it's queerness that's shameful. I think it's the culture that marks it shameful, if you ask me, So when you bring in Hollywood, it gets even messier. Like, imagine, there's so much going on. Think about it. I think it's very important that you have these deep conversations and you really think about it. Image is everything. People have brands, careers, public reputations, So even if Will and Jada do have, an open marriage, which a lot of people believe, I don't think they would ever come out and say it, saying they, was on a break. Remember, that's what they said with the August Alsina situation. That entire situation makes it sound like more, normal, more traditional, more like something every marriage go throughs. But if I think about it deeper and you think about it deeper, it might just be deeper than that. I think that their marriage has likely been open for a while. I think they've had to keep up certain images because of what they represent, especially to black people, black love, black success, black stability. And if they admitted that they had just an unconventional relationship, that image would kind of take a hit, the black love image, especially for black celebrities, especially in a culture that's still uncomfortable with, sexual freedom. And again, I'm not here to say who's gay, who's straight, who's on top, or who's lying. That's just not my place, I'm not going to say that. I'm just thinking out loud, and I wanted to invite y'all into like that process. What if we could talk more openly about queerness, and masculinity in our community? Like, what if we stopped being scared, to ask the uncomfortable questions? Like, what if we stopped seeing queerness or like submission as weak and started seeing it as just another part of, the human experience, That's what I'm interested in, and that's what I'm exploring. So let me know what y'all think, in the comments, but please keep it respectful. This isn't a space for hate or ignorance, just thought and conversation. Thank you for listening. Love you guys. Bye bye.